Okay, can you please give your introduction, experience, technical background, and current company?
Yeah, I am from Karnataka district and completed my primary schooling, diploma and engineering in my hometown. And I started my career as a Java developer with LTDS. And there I initially worked for 3 to 4 months in testing and to understand the application before moving into development. And I later worked for the client project with Huawei and then moved to another company and contributing to multiple projects including the joint application and my current client location project. So I have a total of around 3.2 years of experience in software development, and my technical expertise includes like Spring Boot, Java, Spring Batch, Angular, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, and integration with content manager system. So I also have front end knowledge. So my contribution basically, like you can say, in front end side I work like 20 to 30%, and the rest of the things I work as a backend developer. And apart from this, I also have knowledge of basic cloud services like AWS EC2, SQL Server. Though I haven't had a chance to apply it in the real projects yet, but I do have knowledge on that. And additionally, I have also mentored the team members and taken the ownership of modules. So, for example, in one of the Spring Batch application, so I have taken the ownership. So, yeah, this is what is all about myself. Yeah.
Okay, can you tell me what is the purpose of using Spring Batch?
Yeah, Spring Batch is designed for processing large volume of data in a reliable and step-by-step manner. So a job in Spring Batch consists of multiple steps, and each step can have tasks that implement the tasklets. So interface with an execute method, and there the business logic is all resides in that, and these steps are chained together to form a job, and that enable the structured and sequential processing. So it is especially useful when we need to perform like scheduled repetitive or heavy data operations that cannot be handled efficiently in a single request response cycle. So like it is very much useful whenever we have like chunk oriented processing we have to do. So data is read processed and written in a manageable chunks in this case. And also for scheduling, like job can be scheduled with cron jobs or triggered manually, and also it can be scaled, so it supports parallel and partitioned execution for handling very large data sets. So yeah, so this is what is the purpose of Spring Batch.
Okay, fine. So, can you tell me your experience, like what you have worked on in this?
Yeah, so in one of my project, we had a requirement to package more than 10 GB of training data. So it had videos, PDFs, and audio files into a single compressed zip file for the users. So using Spring Batch, we broke the job into the multiple steps. So like those steps are like download videos in parallel using executor service, and download audio files, download documents, and then again we had to combine all files and compress them into zip using a specified server path, and then clean up temporary files after the completion. So these are the were the steps. So here Spring Batch like gave us better control over step by step execution, error handling, and uh, compared to writing custom multi-thread code, it was much better. So for example, if one step fails, let's say PDF download fails, then only that step needed to rerun instead of reprocessing everything, right? So that was going to take much more time and process everything, right? So now in this case only we have to rerun that specific failed service, either it is video or PDF or whatever it is. So Spring Batch is most valuable when handling any bulk data and complex multi-steps operations, or any scheduled job also we have to do. Then this is very much required. So yeah.
Okay, so you said about tasklet based Spring Batch, right? So can you tell me the difference between tasklet based and chunked oriented processing in the Spring Batch?
Yeah, so tasklet based means a step executes a single task like a script or one time operation, and it implements the tasklet interface with the execute method, and it is commonly basically used for simple tasks such as file deletion, cleanup, sending emails and data transfer or archiving the files. So only for these it is used, and it runs over per step unless explicitly looped. So yeah, so that is what is tasklet. And chunk oriented processing is like it is designed for large volume data processing. So like for reading, processing, writing in chunks. So for those things it is used, and and it defines a reader, processor, and writer, and the data is read like one time at a time and processed and written into chunks. So normally the batch size of 100 we use, for example, or we can take any size based on the system processing and everything. And it also supports the transaction management, rollback, and restartability, and it is based for like ETL, so external extract, transform, load kind of jobs. So yeah, so basically tasklet we can use like whenever we have to do one time simple task execution, and chunk oriented we can do like in the repetitive or larger scale data processing in fixed size chunks. So yeah, that's the difference between these two.
Okay, so how do you schedule the Spring Batch job? Can you tell me the annotations what you use for this?
Yeah, so using Springs, we have added of scheduled annotation, so that we can use, and also we have to added of enable scheduling in the main application class. So we have to annotate a method with add scheduled, and then the cron, then the job name we have to do to launch the job at fixed intervals. So that we can do. So that is how we can configure. And apart from that, we can also use quad scheduler for that. So quads basically provides more advanced scheduling. So like for clustering, job, persistence, and all. So that is another one. And also we have external scheduling tools like we use OS level cron jobs. So I'm not much aware about that, but yeah, so these are the ways how we can schedule it. Yeah.
Okay, can you tell me what is EC2 and S3 in AWS?
Yeah, so EC2 is basically Elastic Cloud, sorry, Compute Cloud. So that is Amazon EC2 is a web service that provides resizable compute capacity in the cloud. So it allows us to launch like virtual machines called instances, and there we can run application just like on physical server. So I have experience in launching EC2 instances, mainly T2.micro type of testing, and I know how to connect to EC2 via SSH in Linux. And also I have configured it little bit of, but not worked that much of. And also I have attached and detached EBS volumes for storage. So these are the things I have done in case of EC2. And in practice, I created an EC2 instance, installed Java and MySQL, deployed a Spring Boot jar file. So all the things I have done. And S3 is basically simple storage service. So that is designed for storing and retrieving any amount of data at any time. So I have created S3 bucket for storing files and organizing data, and also we can upload and download files using the AWS console as well as the AWS CLI. So yeah, so these are things we can do using S3. Yeah.
Okay, so in Spring Boot, can you tell me how do you start a new Spring Boot project with dependencies?
Yeah, there are mainly two ways we can do that. So that one is using the Spring Initializer, Spring IO, that website is there. So there we have to go and we have to select the project type, like whatever it is, like Maven, Gradle, or whatever, and the language also we can select there, and the Spring Boot version. So all that initially we can select, and then we can choose the required dependencies such as like Spring Web, Spring Data JPA, Spring Security, Lombok, Theme Leaf, all that we can select there, like for which we want to include into our project, and then we can generate the project which comes as a pre-configured GIF file. So that will have the pom.xml or build.gradle whatever we have selected, and basic folder structure will be there for our ID, and then we can import it directly to our ID like IntelliJ or Eclipse, and we can start coding on top of that then. And another way is like we can manually add dependencies in pom.xml. So we can create a basic Maven project and the Spring Boot starter parent in pom.xml, and starter dependencies like Spring Boot starter web, Spring Boot starter data GPA, or security we can add. So that is one way. And then there is another way also is like directly we can generate is using the IDE. So like most IDEs like IntelliJ IDEA or STS or Eclipse have built-in support to generate the Spring Boot projects. So we can create a new Spring starter project directly from the IDE by selecting dependencies from a wizard instead of going to the website. So these are the three ways I think through which we can generate. So yeah.
Can you tell me how do you decide which Spring Boot version to use in the new project?
Yeah, for that, the first thing is that we check the compatibility with Java version. So for example, Spring Boot 3, if we are using, then it should have the Java 17 or higher version. And also like stability and support also we check. Like we prefer latest stable release rather than the milestone or snapshot version. And we can check Spring Boot release notes to see which version and are supported and maintained. And also we get the requirement from the architecture side, and it is also discussed with the like client, like what they want to use and what has been conveyed to them. So if the project requires latest features like new Spring Data feature, enhanced observability, and other things, then we can choose more recent stable version. And for legacy or migration project, we may need to stick with the older. It depends on the requirement always. So yeah.
Okay, let's say suppose you want to add a new dependency after project has been created already. So how would you do that?
Yeah, if the project is Maven, then we can simply go and add to dependency in pom.xml. So under dependencies, we can add the dependency. And if the project is Gradle, then also like it has its build.gradle. So there we can add the dependencies. So after adding the dependency, we have to refresh it to Maven or Gradle to automatically download the all the jars. So yeah, so that's how we can do it.
Okay, do you know how you can handle dependency conflicts when multiple starter include the same libraries?
Yeah, conflict occur when two dependencies include the different version of same library. So that are there are the chances that it may happen. Then to resolve that, we can check the dependency tree. So there is a command I think maven dependency tree like that. So that we can use to check the tree, and then we can exclude the unwanted version from the specific dependencies. So that we can do, and then we can force a specific version using dependency management. So using that we can do that, and then we can make sure the forced version is compatible with all other dependent libraries. So yeah, these are the steps we need to follow in order to fix this issue.
Okay, so how do you integrate Spring Security?
Yeah, to integrate Spring Security into a Spring Boot application, usually we add dependencies and add the Spring Security Starter in pom.xml. So like we can add there in a dependency and a Spring Boot Starter Security. So that we can do. And also we can configure security filter chain. So we can define a at the rate of bean of type security filter chain to configure authentication and authorization rule using the HTTP security object. So we can specify which endpoint are public and which require authentication. So that we can do. And also the authentication sources, like in memory authentication or database authentication, which one we have to do. So that also we need to do. So yeah, so these are the things we need to do in order to integrate Spring Security.
Okay, what are the scope variables in Spring?
Scope, singleton, so that is the default, and then prototype, request, session, and yeah, application. So these are the scopes we have. So singleton is like only one instance of the bean is created per Spring container, and all the request for this bean returns the same instance. And prototype is not like that, so a new instance is created every time the bean is requested from the container. So that is what is the prototype. And then request is like a new bean instance is created for every HTTP request. So that is request. And then session is a bean instance is created per HTTP session. So that is session wise. So yeah, so these are the scope variables we have in Spring.
Okay, can you explain when to use singleton and when to use prototype in Spring in real-time scenarios?
Yeah, in real time scenario, singleton, since it is like only one instance of the bin is created per Spring container. So whenever we have a stateless services or utilities where no client specific data is stored, so for then we can go for this singleton. So in real time, like in service layer means, let's say we have user service, email service, or any payment service in Spring Boot application. So these services usually don't hold client specific data, so they just process request. So in this case we can go for the singleton. And prototype is like, as we know, a new instance is created every time the bin is requested. So we can use it, each user request gets its own processor instance to avoid the shared state. So when handling user input form in a web app, so each form can have a separate bin instance. So for the form objects and details we can do that. Yeah, so that's when we can use the prototype scope.
Okay, what is the difference between Spring MVC and Spring Boot?
Yeah, Spring MVC is a design pattern like a model view controller used for building web applications in the Spring framework, and it requires manual configuration of dispatcher servlet, view resolver, and other components. And developers need to configure dependencies, application server, and security manually. And it handles request response, like controller, service repository, and view like that. So that is what is the Spring MVC. So traditional MVC web application deployed on an external Tomcat server with manual XML or Java based configurations. But Spring Boot is, like we can say, framework in the ecosystem only, that is designed to simplify application development, and it provides starter dependencies that automatically push the commonly used libraries, so we don't have to write the boilerplate codes in this case. And it also supports auto configuration, so we don't need to configure embedded servers, data sources, or Spring security manually. So like a REST API project using the Spring Boot can run directly with the Java jars, so with embedded Tomcat, Spring security, and database connectivity pre-configured, so we don't have to write the boilerplate codes, and it is automatically removed. So that is when we can use the Spring Boot. So yeah, that is what the difference between these two.
So can you tell me which dependency injection method is better? First of all, tell me what are the types of them.
Yeah, we have a setter method, Then we have a constructor method, then auto wired is there. So like constructor based injection is generally considered better than the setter or field injection. So constructor is better because with auto wired field injection all beans in the spring context are initialized generally or eagerly. So even if they are not needed, still it will be initialized. And constructor injection ensures the dependencies are created only when the object is instantiated, so not every time. So it saves the memory like in large applications. So that is one thing. And then dependencies are final and must be provided at object creation. So makes the class immutable and easier to test. So yeah, so constructor based injection is considered as much better. Yeah.
And how to inject dependency with AutoWire?
Yeah, we can use explicit constructor based injection. So Spring automatically detects the constructor if there is only one. So no need for add rate of autowire annotation in Spring Boot like higher version if there is only one constructor in the class.
Okay, can you tell me the difference between CRUD repository and JPA repository?
Yeah, CRUD repository that's the legacy interface we can say, and JPA repository like it is the extended the CRUD repository. So obviously JPA repository will have more methods, so it inherits all CRUD repository methods plus it adds the paging and sorting things also. Like we have find all of pageable and sort, so those things also is added here. And CRUD will have like the basic things like save, find by id, delete. So all those basic things, basic CRUD operations will be there. And also like if we go with the query support, then CRUD repository will only support the basic CRUD things, but JPA repository support JPQL queries also, and custom derived queries and specification queries. Whenever we have a smaller simple CRUD app, then we can go for the CRUD repository, or all the modern apps with pagination sorting. So for that usually most of the time we use JPA repository. So yeah, so that's the difference between these two.
So what about this batch operation? So can that be supported by CRUD operation or you need JPA?
Yeah, for batch we need JPA repository. So I don't think it is there in CRUD.
Okay, what is microservice? Can you explain in very short?
Yeah, microservice is a small independently deployable service we can say that performs a specific business function, and each service has its own database business logic and can be deployed scaled independently. And microservices communicate with each other using REST API, messaging queue, or gRPC. So for example like let's say order related microservice is there, any application is there, then we can have like order service, payment service, inventory service. So those kind of modules we can have. So it is completely different from the monolithic one. Monolithic will have the everything in one application, but microservice will be the independent modules that will be integrated together using the various calls. So yeah, so that's what is the microservice.
Okay, can you tell me how you handle load balancing in microservices and when it comes in picture?
Yeah, load balancing is required when you have the multiple instances of a microservices running to handle increased traffic, and to improve the availability and avoid overloading in a single instance. So then we use the load balancing. So it ensures the requests are distributed efficiently among available service instances. So it comes into picture when a single microservice instance cannot handle all incoming requests, and when we deploy microservices across multiple servers or containers during auto scaling in cloud environments, when new instance may spin by dynamically, and also to improve the fault tolerance. So in one instance, so suppose if one instance fails, then the traffic is routed to the another healthy instance which is available. So in these scenarios, this load balancing thing comes into picture. So yeah.
Okay, can you tell me which Java version you have used?
I've used Java 1.8.
Okay, can you tell me what is the difference between metaspace and permgen?
Metaspace, uh, it has been introduced in Java 8, and before that we had Permgen. So that is permanent generation of memory, and like the location of Permgen was part of JVM heap, and metaspace is outside of JVM heap, so it is part of native memory basically. Its space can be given up to the uh, like system's memory, and garbage collection, it is collected during the full garbage collection for PermGen, and for metaspace it is collected when the class metadata is no longer referenced. So this is what is the difference between these two.
What are the new features you know in Java 8?
New features are like Lambda expression is there, functional interface, stream API, default and static methods, optional class, new date time API, then method reference and constructor reference. So yeah, so these are the features I know.
So, what is functional interface?
Yeah, functional interface is an interface with exactly one abstract method, and it can have a default and static methods, like that can be any number of, and it is used as a like a target type for lambda expression. So yeah, so that is what is the functional interface.
Okay, so how do you use a functional interface with Lambda expression in Java?
Yeah, a lambda expression provides the implementation of the single abstract method of a functional interface. So, for example, if we have like any method as input parameter, for example, so we can just say forward slash and greater than, and then method body we can write. We can also use it with a standard functional interface like consumer predicate function and all. So yeah, so that is what like we can use a functional interface with lambda expression.
Okay, so can a functional interface override object class methods?
Yeah, it can override, yes. So we have the methods of object classes like toString or equals. So yeah, so methods from the objects do not count basically as abstract methods for the functional interface. So we can override it, and also it won't be counted as a abstract methods. So we can still have exactly one abstract method even after overriding these methods. So yeah.
Okay, so what is the purpose of using at the rate of functional interface annotation? So how it is different from the normal interface?
Yeah, this add item function interface is optional when we create the function interface, but it is very much important to have it because the it also helps us to track the compile time checking. So if any suppose if we have not followed anything, and if the particular interface is not functional interface, so as soon as we put this annotation in the top of this interface, so it will start showing the compiler error if it is not functional interface. It will throw an error if the interface has more than one abstract method also. So normal interface may have multiple abstract methods and cannot be used directly as a target for the lambdas, but this is not the case in case of functional interface. So that's a difference. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell me the difference between optional label?
Yeah, so optional dot off it creates optional with none null value. So and it throws the null pointer exception if it is null. And optional dot off nullable, like it creates optional and it accepts null. So that's the difference between these two.
And what is the difference between reduce and collect?
Yeah, reduce performs aggregation on elements to produce a single result, like sum, max, min, and all. And collect performs mutable reduction to accumulate elements into collections, list, maps, sets, and all. So yeah, so that's the difference between these two.
Okay, what is the difference between heap and stack memory?
Yeah, heap and a stack are two types of memory used by a Java program. So stack memory stores local variables, method call frames and references of objects. It operates in a like a last in first out manner. So that is thread specific and is automatically cleared when a method finishes execution. And heap memory on the other hand is used to store objects and class instances that have dynamic lifetime. So if like it is shared among all threads, so it is managed by garbage collector and can grow or shrink at runtime. So while a stack memory is faster and has a limited size, a heap memory is larger but slightly slower due to dynamic allocation and garbage collection. So that's the difference between these two. Yeah.
Okay, can you explain Java class loader hierarchy?
Yeah, Java class loader hierarchy consists of three main types of load classes in a parent-child model. So the bootstrap class loader is the top level loader. So it is implemented in native code and responsible for loading core Java classes from the we have lib folder. So from there, so like we have java.lang.start. So all that comes from there. And the extension loader then we have our platform class loader is that is there in the newer version. So it loads classes from the library ext external, so uh, directories, and provides optional standard extension. So the application class loader loads classes from the application class path, including user defined classes and libraries. So each child delegates class loading request to its parent first. So that ensures core classes are loaded by the bootstrap loader and avoiding class conflicts. So yeah, so that's what is the uh, class loader hierarchy is.
Okay, can you tell me what is checked and unchecked exceptions? And also tell me what are the best practices you follow.
Yeah, in Java, checked exceptions are exceptions that are compiled, that our compiler enforces us to handle either with try catch block or by declaring them in the method signature using throws. So unchecked exception, also called runtime exception, so that are not checked at compile time and usually indicate programming error logic mistakes or invalid arguments. So that null pointer exception, array index out of bound exception, and all that. So best practices what I follow is we can use checked exception for recoverable conditions where the caller can take corrective action like file not found and all. And we can use unchecked exception for programming errors or situations that cannot be reasonably recovered from. So yeah, so that is what the best practice we follow, and we can also avoid overly generic exception handling, catch a specific exception in maintain clarity. So yeah, so that is what are the best practices we follow.
Okay, can you tell me the difference between array list and copy on write array list?
Yeah, these both implementations of list interface only in Java, but they differ in the thread safety and performance. So array list is not thread safe. So that means that concurrent modification exception may happen, whenever the multiple threads can lead to uh, trying to do some modification to existing list. So in that case, concurrent modification exception will may happen. So copy on a write array list, uh, it creates a copy of the underlying array on every write or add, set or remove whatever we are going to do. So that is why this concurrent modification exception never happens in this case. So it makes the read operation safe and fast even in the multi-threaded environment. But write operations are slower and memory intensive due to copying. Basically, whenever we can use array list for single threaded scenarios and copy on write array list when reads dominated and thread safety is required without external synchronization, then we can use copy on write array list.